So what is the future of work in this AI automation age? And of course, the AI-enabled technologies that are ushering in this wave of automation as well, like robotics, sensors, and other things. So I'm going to give you 3 predictions of what things are going to be like 10 years from now, and we'll all find out how I did. The first is that the interface with technology will be completely different. In 10 years, no one will be typing on keyboards to interact with a computer. It'll all be spoken commands. This is going to be far more efficient for people at work. Why? Because you can speak, most people, faster than you can type. So how does this look? Like, let's say you do spreadsheets at work. Well, you will tell the computer, create a data set with this information or find me a data set with this information on the web. Then you will say, analyze that information by focusing on these 4 characteristics, and you'll list the 4 characteristics. And then you'll say, give me a bullet point output of what the data focusing on these characteristics for analysis tells us. And boom, you have it. This is so much more efficient than where things are now that it is further going to accelerate many of the things that humans do. And that was just an example for spreadsheets. The same applies to all communications. The same applies to government planning. The same applies to scientific research. This is going to be a massive shift and massively empowering for humanity. And by the way, many of you will have this in your home as well. You will have your own personal AI and robots, and you'll just ask them to do things, or you'll tell them to schedule to do something. Like you'll tell your AI assistant, look what's in my fridge every Saturday and send me an order from Stop and Shop, for example. We just had Thanksgiving here in the States, and we were saying how much we will love to have a dishwashing and pots and pan washing robot to clean up after Thanksgiving. So that'll be great. So home and work will be much the same in this respect for most people. So that's prediction number 1. Elimination of manual interfaces, meaning you have to type or press buttons or do things to get stuff to work. Prediction number 2, 10 years from now, there already exists significant differences between urban and rural environments, but it's nothing compared to what's going to happen in the next 10 years. In the cities, you're going to see a complete change over the next 10 years in transportation, especially in the biggest cities. What does this look like? Well, first, it's complete electrification of vehicles in cities for 2 reasons. One is noise, and the other is reduction of pollution. This is going to have a huge impact on quality of life in cities, but it's much more than that. Urban air mobility will mean moving around cities easily, point to point, in short amount of time. Where will this be a massive positive change in life? Los Angeles, for example, where the city is very, very spread out, and getting from one end of Los Angeles to another, like driving from the North Valley down to the South Bay in Los Angeles, can take 2 hours. So that'll really be starting to take hold in 10 years. It won't be complete, but it will be well on its way. And of course, self-driving. Cities will not allow human-driven vehicles in the center of cities in the next 10 years. Most cities are going to ban that. Why? Because the data already proves that self-driving vehicles are 80+% safer than human drivers. Why does that matter? I'll give you a great example. In the city of New York, the 5 boroughs, every single year, 40,000 pedestrians are hit by cars. Is it a game changer to eliminate that? Think about it. The reason why there will be an accelerating difference between urban and rural areas is because a lot of this stuff isn't going to really impact rural areas so much. There will be high automation in rural areas. 10 years from now, farming will be largely automated. 10 years from now, except for handling livestock, probably. But for growing crops, mostly automated. Handling livestock is more complicated. That'll take a little more time. But self-driving doesn't necessarily have the same bang for the buck out in the country that it does in cities. So I'm not as sure about that. One thing that will impact small cities to great benefit is the urban air mobility thing, right? Because right now, from many small cities, you have to drive an hour or two to a bigger city to go to a major airport to fly somewhere because the economics just aren't worth it for flights from really small towns and stuff. Urban air mobility changes all that. So there will be positive impacts of what's coming in the rural areas, but there will be a growing divide between cities and rural environments in terms of this massive sci-fi future and life staying more the same. So bigger divide coming between cities and rural areas. And my third prediction for 10 years from now is that many people will have more free time. Why? Because so many of the day-to-day chores and tasks we have to do now will be automated by then. The grocery thing, the house cleaning thing, cooking and cleaning up after meals, a lot of automation coming. The scale at which robots are going to be made shortly will be massive. We're talking millions of robots being made, and they will therefore get cheap and become affordable for many people. So then the question is, what are you going to do with all this newfound free time? Well, one of the things you'll need to do, I talked about in my very last video, is have this learning mindset. So you're going to need to keep learning new things all the time. And that's to stay relevant. But also, you're going to really have to think about this. So you can waste all that time, if you will. I'm not saying it's a total waste, but it's a comparative waste to just spend your time watching a screen or gaming or whatever. I mean, obviously there needs to be recreation, obviously. And these are elements of people's recreation. But with more free time, does that mean you're going to just watch a screen more? My kids and I at Thanksgiving were talking about a shocking statistic just read last week that came out that the average American spends 8 hours a day on their smartphone. 8 hours. So are you going to then spend 12 hours on screens, 15 hours, 18 hours on screens? So you really got to start thinking about, what am I going to do with more free time? Well, there's some great things you can do, right? You can volunteer to help people who are having a hard time. Food pantries, rides to doctor visits, checking in on neighbors, helping take care of people with a disability. There's so many things you can do, it's insane. And volunteer organizations are always looking for help. So that's one thing you can do with some of this free time. What's another? Another is going to be travel, without a doubt. In 10 years, you'll be able to travel places easily right now that you can't, that are very time consuming to get to. Why? Supersonic air travel, or there will be air travel by vehicles that go many times the speed of sound. So for example, you can get from New York to Sydney in an hour with the kind of transportation I'm talking about. Everything changes with that kind of mobility in the world. And this is coming, folks. It's already in development right now. So start thinking gradually about what you're going to do with more free time. My personal opinion is, if that many people would be willing to do even a little bit of volunteer work, the whole world and society changes for the better. but that's just my opinion. But for sure, you will have more free time. So those are my 3 predictions for the next decade. All 3 of those do affect work. Obviously, having a different interface to all of your systems to do your work. Obviously, having more free time affects your work. And the growing further divide between cities and rural areas will affect work as well. So I have pretty high confidence in these predictions I just made. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and share these videos. Also, please support us on Patreon or buy me a coffee. Really need your financial support to continue to grow the channel. So thanks so much for tuning in. A special thanks to my subscribers. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.